video we're going to learn how to rotate, pan and zoom your view so you can go and manipulate and look at your model from any angle you wish. We're going to show you how to switch between the standard view types. And finally, we're going to go through perspective versus orthographic projection and show you when you might want to use those. Let's hop straight over to Blender and do some more. So one of the first things I will do is show you some coloured traffic lights that I've got set up. Whenever I left click, it will go red. Whenever I middle click, it will go yellow. And whenever I right click, it will go green. So left is red, the middle button is yellow, and the right button is green. Okay, so holding down the middle mouse button will enable you to rotate around your models, whether that be to look above, to the side, beneath, etc. This gives you great flexibility. Now the way that Blender works is as I'm holding down that, if I go off the top of the screen for whatever reason, I appear at the bottom, so you can always continue doing the same motion and it will just carry on going forever and ever and ever. I'm feeling pretty dizzy after that. Right, if you hold down Shift whilst moving around the middle mouse button, you pan, and that's simply moving left, right, up and down. Very useful for a much larger model than the cube we have here, or when you're zoomed in really close. Aha! Zooming, how did I do that? Well, that's the scroll wheel up and down. The middle mouse wheel moving forwards and backwards will scroll in and out. It's as straightforward as that to move around your model in order to get to the viewpoint you want. And finally, there is another way to pan, and that's whilst holding down the Shift key, and the scroll wheel will pan up and down, and the control key and the scroll wheel will scroll to the left and right. This gives you a little bit more granular. I still prefer personally the Shift key and pressing down the middle mouse button, but otherwise that's a perfectly good alternative. I feel a challenge coming on. Okay, I'd like you to go crazy, zoom in and out, get used to that, try panning and rotating around the model. In this case, just a simple cube, but have fun, get that interface nailed so you can take full control of Blender. So talking about views, how would I make sure I'm able to look at exactly the front of the model or the top or the side, or have a bit more quantized control about it? So down in the lower left we have the view menu. When we click on the view menu, we end up with a series of options just along the bottom here that enable us to change the view type. We can click it and move it to the top view, etc, etc. Those are also associated with keys on your number pad should you have one. So you can very quickly move from the front to the right, to the top, etc. once you know the keys. So the front, the top and the right. You can also hold down Control and you will go to the bottom, the left, and I presume the back. This leads us on to the difference between orthogonal projection and perspective. We're in perspective mode at the moment, and you can toggle in and out of perspective and orthographic projection by hitting the number pad 5. And we can see here in the top left that it says back perspective, and if we hit number pad 5 it goes back ortho. We can also change and toggle between the two here under view, perspective, ortho. So view, perspective, ortho, and there we have the number pad 5 as well. Now the great thing about orthographic projection is if we are tracing from reference material, we will need it in orthographic projection to make sure that things are the right scale. So just to illustrate one very important point with the difference between perspective and orthographic projection, if I quickly duplicate this cube, and don't worry about how I'm doing it for the moment, and just put it over there, it looks smaller. In fact, let's get extreme. Let's shove it many miles away. So there we go. So it's still in our view, but it's all the way over there. So we've got these two cubes. They're both actually the same size because one is a duplicate of the other, but one looks a lot smaller than the other. Also, with orthographic projection, parallel lines like the two on the top of this cube stay parallel, whereas at the moment they tend to a point somewhere in the distance. So if we switch that to orthographic projection, you can see that these lines are parallel once more. So are these ones here, and so are all the vertical ones. Where's the other cube gone? Well, in orthographic projection there's no such thing as perspective. So even though that cube that's absolutely miles away, it's the same size as this one. So the moment you switch into orthographic projection, you can compare sizes much more easily, and that's very important when you're modeling things to a certain scale or against another model, that you're not modeling it smaller or larger than necessary because it's further away or closer to your viewpoint.